You are exposed to more ideas than any human in history. More perspectives, more explanations, more insight, and yet nothing fundamental about you changes. That isn't because you're lazy, it isn't because you don't care, it isn't because you lack discipline. It's because exposure doesn't equal disruption. You can hear new ideas without being touched by them. You can consume deep content without being disturbed. You can reflect without anything in your life rearranging itself. Most of what reaches you does not confront you, it confirms you. An echo chamber doesn't feel like confinement, it feels like understanding. You watch videos that articulate things you already feel. You read posts that give language to your frustration. You listen to voices that sound like an upgraded version of your own thoughts. That feels productive. It feels like growth. But notice what never happens. Nothing you consume requires you to abandon who you already are. Nothing you allow in threatens your self-image. Nothing forces a rupture. It all fits. Smoothly, quietly. An echo chamber doesn't shout agreement, it whispers recognition. It says, yes, that's exactly it. Yes, you're right. Yes, that makes sense. And sense is soothing, especially when your life stays the same. You don't feel sheltered, you feel informed. You don't feel stuck, you feel aware. You don't feel confined, you feel seen. But nothing fractures, nothing destabilizes, nothing interrupts the internal order you've built, because everything you allow in has passed a test first. It matches you, your values, your tone, your assumptions, your pace. It feels safe because it's familiar, and familiarity is not neutral, it preserves. Look at your thoughts, not the dramatic ones, the everyday ones. How many of them are actually new? The questions repeat, the doubts repeat, the explanations repeat. Only the language changes. You think you're exploring, but you're orbiting, circling the same conclusions from slightly different angles, revisiting the same concerns with new vocabulary, arriving at the same emotional endpoint. This feels like depth, but repetition often masquerades as insight. You are not thinking deeply, you are staying close to what you already know, and closeness feels like truth. Notice how your thinking moves. It rarely travels into unknown territory, it rarely ends somewhere uncomfortable, it rarely concludes with disorientation. It loops back to caution, back to explanation, back to why now isn't the time, back to why it's complicated. Your mind is not stagnant, it's efficient. It recognizes paths that don't threaten identity and follows them automatically. You're not stuck because you don't think. You're stuck because your thinking is contained. And containment feels intelligent. It feels measured. It feels responsible. But responsibility to what? To coherence, to the version of yourself that already exists. Familiar thoughts don't challenge you. They stabilize you. They tell you who you are, they remind you of your limits, they reinforce what makes sense for someone like you, someone with your past, your context, your constraints. So even when you question yourself, you do it in ways that lead back to safety, the same shape. You never quite lose your footing, you never quite risk confusion, because confusion would mean something is actually changing, and that's not what most of your thinking is designed to allow. Now, look at the people around you, not with blame, with precision. They know you, not fully, but as a version. They've adjusted to your patterns, your tone, your availability, your limits, and that adjustment creates equilibrium. You play a role, they respond, the system stays balanced. Change disrupts that balance, not loudly, subtly. If you change, they have to recalibrate, they have to reinterpret you, they have to update their expectations. That creates friction. So most resistance doesn't arrive as opposition, it arrives as concern, as jokes, as reminders, as be realistic, as don't overthink it, as you've always been like this. Even care can be a stabilizing force. Even support can function as containment, not because people want to limit you, but because systems prefer continuity. Every relationship silently negotiates who you are allowed to become, not explicitly, implicitly, through what's rewarded, through what's ignored, through what creates tension. You don't need enemies to stay the same. You just need familiarity. People benefit from you being predictable. They know how to relate to you that way. They know where they stand. And you benefit too. You don't have to reassert yourself. You don't have to tolerate misunderstanding. You don't have to risk being seen differently. Staying the same keeps the social field calm, even when it costs you internal honesty. Notice how rare it is for someone to genuinely invite your transformation, not improvement, transformation. Improvement is safe. It keeps the core intact. Transformation threatens roles. It threatens dynamics. It threatens identity agreements that were never spoken but always enforced. So most encouragement comes with limits. Just don't change too much. Don't lose yourself. Be careful. As if the current version of you is fragile. As if deviation is danger. And part of you agrees because you learned who you are inside these relationships. Breaking from that version feels like stepping out of bounds, even when the bounds are invisible. Now expand outward, beyond people, beyond thought. Look at the environment you move through every day. The digital one. The one that never sleeps. The one that never challenges you accidentally. Algorithms don't trap you by mistake. They trap you by recognition. They learn what you pause on, what you save, what you agree with, what you emotionally register. And then they give you more of it, not to deceive you, to keep you engaged, which means keeping you affirmed. You are not shown what would destabilize you. You are shown what confirms you, again and again. Notice how informed you feel, how articulate, how aware of systems and psychology and patterns. You nod, you agree, you feel seen, and then you scroll. Nothing breaks. Because the content you consume is safe, not shallow, safe. It challenges behavior, maybe, it names problems, maybe, but it rarely challenges identity. It doesn't force you to question who you think you are. It doesn't threaten the story you tell about yourself. It doesn't create internal conflict. It reinforces it. You don't leave confused. You leave validated, which feels like insight. But insight without destabilization is containment. This is why you feel knowledgeable but unchanged. You have language, you have frameworks, you have explanations, but your internal structure remains untouched. Because nothing you consume demands a cost, nothing asks you to give something up, nothing threatens your coherence. You feel like you're growing, but growth that doesn't disorient is usually just refinement. A more sophisticated way of staying where you are. Leaving an echo chamber doesn't feel like liberation, it feels like loss. Because the moment confirmation disappears, so does protection. Old explanations stop working, old identities stop making sense, old narratives collapse. And collapse is terrifying, not because you don't know what to do next, because you don't know who you are without the story. Growth isn't resisted because it's hard. It's resisted because it dissolves coherence. It removes the framework that allowed you to understand yourself. And without that framework, you're exposed, not empowered, exposed. The echo chamber keeps you intact. It keeps your past meaningful. It keeps your limits justified. It keeps your hesitation reasonable. Leaving it would mean standing without those buffers. No familiar language, no ready-made explanations, no audience that already agrees. Just uncertainty. And uncertainty feels like death to the identity, because identity needs continuity to survive, even a painful one, even a limiting one, as long as it's consistent. So the echo chamber feels like safety, not because it's true, because it's stabilizing. You are not afraid of failing. You are afraid of not recognizing yourself, of waking up without the internal commentary that tells you who you are, of losing the familiar narrative that organizes your life, of becoming someone your environment doesn't know how to respond to. And without response, without recognition, identity weakens. So the echo chamber does important work. It keeps you mirrored, reflected, confirmed, reassured, again and again, until nothing changes. This is why escape feels unsafe, not because the outside is hostile, but because the inside would be unstructured. No ready agreement, no immediate validation, no smooth explanations, just friction, just silence, just the unsettling absence of confirmation. And silence exposes things, questions you've been circling but never entering, doubts that can't be resolved with language, desires that don't fit your current identity. The echo chamber keeps those things distant. It keeps them theoretical, contained, safe. So if nothing changes in your life, ask yourself one question. What part of me is being carefully preserved by everything I allow in? And sit with that, without answering, without fixing, without turning it into insight. Just notice what has been kept alive and what has quietly been kept out. Then let the silence remain.